Hi, I'm David Canfield, EW's Awardist Series, and I'm joined right now by Cynthia Erivo, star of the film Harriet. Thank you so much for joining us, Cynthia.
Thank you for having me.
So I love this film, and I wanted to start by asking you about the sort of scope of it. We have not had a Harriet Tubman movie. You have not led your own film yet. Did you feel a lot of pressure?
Yes, and I mean, less pressure, more a responsibility to tell the story as fully and as truthfully as I possibly could, and to be a good leader on set. It was a big deal all the way around, really. I wanted to tell Harriet's story, and I also wanted to make sure that I was the right person to be number one, really, on the call sheet.
So how did you come to that decision for yourself that you were the right choice to play this part?
Well, I think there was so much faith in me from the director and the producers. When I sat and talked to Deborah, Martin Chase, who is one of the producers, I knew that the story needed to be told, and I knew it had taken a long time to get to this point. And I didn't want them to wait anymore, to be honest. And I felt like if it was me and if it was going to happen, then I was ready to be open to have it happen. Some people might say I'm fearless. I don't know that I am fearless. I think I'm daring, for sure. And I think there is this kind of spirit that the two of us share, in that, you know, we're strong-willed, strong-bodied.
You grew up in the UK, so I'm wondering, what did you know about Harriet Tubman, and what kind of research did you do?
I knew the broad strokes. I think what most people know of her is her works, and the fact that she brought herself to freedom, really and truly. She ran 100 miles. I knew that she was the one that kept coming back again and again and again and saving people. It was the detail that I was able to find out through the research. You know, things like her husband and herself. I didn't know that that was such a big love, and I didn't know that that's where it started. I didn't know that the first person she came back for was him. It was sort of wonderful to know that this all began, the story that we know, the adventure that we know, the trial that she put herself through, began with a love story. It began with the fact that she could not live without her husband. She wanted to go back and get him. That came from research. It's written research, you know. It sort of, the mind boggles, really. It's kind of, she's incredible in all ways, the intelligence and the strength and the will and the sheer determination, which I know I have, to do right.
You got lucky, Harriet. And there's nothing more you can do.
Don't you tell me what I can't do. I made it this far on my own. God was watching, but my feet was my own. Running, bleeding, climbing, nearly drowned, nothing to eat for days and days, man. I made it. So don't you tell me what I can't do.
There's this sort of, the myth of Harriet Tubman, as we grant to a lot of great historical figures. One of the things I love about this movie is that the very first time you see her is with her husband, and it's this very intimate, loving moment.
Yeah, we knew we wanted people to see her as a woman and a human being first, before we saw her as the hero that we all know and love. I think too many times when we see these characters, they sort of lose their humanity and their earthliness as it is. I think it's all too easy to, I guess, detach from the humanity when it's a woman of color. Often it's like the one thing, that a strong woman. We wanted for people to see that this was a young woman who was in love, and that was what she was first. And I think it changes the way people see her, so that when she does become the hero, it's all the more effective, it's all the more meaningful, because it comes from that. It comes from someone who is very human and has to overcome human things to become the hero that she is.
It struck me that so much of her journey in this film is about family.
Yes.
It's about reuniting her family, which
absolutely.
is a very universal theme, and she emerges as this incredible hero, but that mission, I feel, is very human and very universal in a lot
very
of
much
ways.
So. That was the thing that drove her. Her love of God, her love of family. Those were the things that like moved her forward. And then it sort of expanded to the wider world. She realized that in wanting to free her family and herself, it wasn't enough, that people deserved their freedom. They had a right to it, and she wanted to make sure that she was there to see that through.
You mentioned the sort of physicality of this part, and you're running a lot in this movie, and in general, there's a lot of physical intensity that you have to withstand to play this part. What kind of training did you do?
I was training every day. I had a steady bike in the apartment that I was staying in Richmond. But beforehand, I was weight work, it was running, it was jump rope. A jump rope is really good to keep up stamina and strength. Weighted jump ropes, I had everything. Any manner of working out I could possibly do, I was doing, because I needed to keep my fitness and my stamina up, really.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And the other part of that, of course, is inhabiting her skin, and there's a real story to the way she moves and the clothes she wears.
Yeah, I was lucky because we had Paul Taswell, who was incredible. He was a costume designer, and in the conversations in which we had, we knew that we wanted the costumes also to aid the storytelling, and we had to find that, and we had to find out the way she would walk. I guess it's about looking at pictures and seeing the way she stands, seeing the way where she puts her weight. I think that sort of encourages and influences the way you move. If your weight's in a certain place, when you take the first step, you're going to take it in a certain way. And when you put on a corset, it already adjusts the way you stand, the way you move, because it has to. So it's taking all that information in and finding a way to filter it through to turn it into something that lives in reality.
How do you do? Good. We're confident, composed, wise enough to know not to look a strange white man in the eyes. You don't want no trouble.
There's a narrative here, too, in the way the film draws a contrast between Harriet Tubman's life as a slave and Harriet Tubman's life as a free woman. And when she arrives in Philadelphia, she's very bewildered.
Yeah, has no idea what's going on.
She has no idea what's going on. And there's this tension, even with characters played by Leslie Odom Jr. and Helen. In terms of the way you made that turn from as she kind of gains a sort of sense of self in this new space, did you, what kind of choices did you make to show her?
It's the decision to, instead of walking with her head down or walking as though she's confused, to walk with her head up. It's the first time she does it, back straight, head up, and even then it's still not sure. And I guess what I decided to do was ease out of that, so it wasn't a stark difference from when you meet her to when you see her towards the end. I wanted it to take time for her to be used to walking in a corset and in a big dress. And when you meet her and Marie Buchanan, who's played by Janelle, when Janelle teaches her how to walk like a lady, it's new. It's these shoes, it's the corset, it's the dress. And so as that goes through the film, I made the decision to just keep, I guess, ratcheting it up just a bit. Just every time we would get to a new stage in her, she would know how to move like a woman, like a lady, like a free lady, because it's different.
So you're making all these very specific choices. I'm wondering if there was something particularly difficult to figure out about Harriet.
I had to figure out what her singing voice was like. And you don't have any information other than what you see. And so I had to sort of make a decision out of thin air, just based on her personality, the things that she went through. So I knew that I'm a soprano and it didn't feel right for her to be a soprano. And I knew that I didn't want her to sound like I sound when I sing.
Sure.
So I knew that there had to be a pitch shift, and I guess where I sing from, I needed to feel a little bit different to where she sings from. So I had made a decision that I wanted it to come almost from the solar plexus. So it felt like it was really grounded almost. And I knew that I wanted to take any aspect of performance out of it, because that wasn't the point of it. So you take the performance out of it, you sort of go right back to as pure as you can possibly be, and it becomes a grounded moment of communication. Both Casey and I had discussed, like, where do we want it to be? I knew that she was an alto. In my head, she was an alto on the lower end of that, and I knew that it would feel less performative when I did it. Yeah.
I wonder if looking at the photographs too, if they in any way helped you consider.
It's like mapping her face, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, looking at her and you're like, you wonder where the sadness comes, and you do the research and you think, okay, so she lost her family, she lost her sister, she lost her husband. A lot of loss happened in her life. And so, okay, you understand where the sadness is coming from, you understand where the downturned mouth comes from. And because those pictures are slightly later in life, I think what was effective is to see the joy and the smile at the beginning and watch that sort of slowly fade. before you finally get it back towards the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a growth, but it comes from that one picture of her, you know,
Yeah.
where it doesn't feel like, but that's when she's like right in the middle of her life, and I wanted to find that
Center of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an extraordinary story, and I was struck at the end of it by the fact that this had not been told
Yeah.
in a film before.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know that people were ready for it. There are so many. I know there were a few attempts to tell her story, but I guess this world wasn't ready for her story, unfortunately. And Casey and I like to look at the bright side and maybe say that maybe Harriet wasn't ready until now. Maybe she has some agency in this, and she decided that now is the perfect time for it to be told, because where we are right now in the world kind of needs a story like this. It needs a story of a woman who is empowered and in control and strong enough to make a huge change in the world. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's why now and not why then.
Yeah. And hopefully more stories.
I
come
hope
out
so.
of that. Yeah.
I hope so.
So this was your first time carrying a film really on
Yeah.
your shoulders, and obviously you've done that with The Color Purple and
Yeah.
other shows. How would you compare those two experiences?
Both very big moments in my life, for sure. This one I'm currently living.
Still living.
Still living. I guess the difference between playing Celie and playing Harriet is on stage, I get the automatic reaction from my audience. They tell me how they feel about her. They tell me what they want her to do. They are very loud, and I love it. With Harriet, it's sort of quieter. You're sort of going on instinct, and you're learning to trust your director, and you're trusting the castmates that you have around you to figure out what is necessary and what's needed. They're both big responsibilities, and they're both incredible stories, and I think the biggest difference is that Harriet was real. Harriet existed, and though I believe that Celie may have been based on someone, she's a fictional character, and Harriet is someone that is beloved by many people.
Yeah. What is something you think you learned about yourself as an actress coming out of this experience?
That I cared deeply about every aspect of the story. I can't help it. I realized, and I realized that acting for me is not just about being on the screen.
Yeah.
I think it's about everything else. It's about how I treat other people. That's definitely something that means a lot to me. And I also learned that I think I've got more strength in me than I thought I did, and I'm willing to conquer fears to get things done. Because I had never climbed a cliff before, that's for sure.
I can imagine.
I had never done rock climbing before, but I knew that I wanted to be a part of as much as I possibly could on this, because I felt like it was the only way to tell the story fully.
Yeah.
So if that meant walking into 37-degree water, that was that.
37 degrees.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
37 degrees that night, and it was freezing.
Wow.
But I knew that it wouldn't have made sense for me not to do it, because I wouldn't have known how it felt. So I wanted to, and it wouldn't have made any sense to not climb up that, because I wouldn't have known how it felt. I don't want to miss out on those things.
Did you talk about that sense of authenticity in the movie and
Yeah.
living through those experiences
Yeah.
as obviously as best you could?
Yeah, but because before we started, it was one of the first things I asked. I asked if I could do most, if not all, of my stunts, because I wanted to make sure that both mentally and physically I was in touch with her. So whatever she was meant to go through, I wanted to have experienced as much as I possibly could, because I felt like it informed my feelings and the way I told the story as we went on. And it just feels better that way, because I'm, I guess, a glutton for punishment. I don't want to miss out on anything.
Yeah.
And I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to learn more. And the only way to learn more is to be a part of most of the things that I can learn from.
I'm gonna be free or die.
There's that one scene where she runs through the woods and she's being chased by the hounds and the horses, and she trips and falls down that weird ravine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was, you know, I wanted to do that. I did it myself and threw myself down. It's a full like trip up and down. I did it all on my own. I was like, I want to work out what that's like, and then to have to like pick yourself up and move on after that. If I don't know what that is, I don't want to start at the end of the fall because that's no use.
Yeah, you had to push yourself.
Yeah.
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 I saw you were cast to play Aretha Franklin in the miniseries Genius.
Yes.
Do you think that this experience helped you to feel like, yeah, I can play Aretha Franklin?
I think so. I think so, yes. That and knowing a lot about Aretha and knowing her music very well and being very in love with Aretha probably gave me the confidence to say, yeah, okay. And also it's quite something if, you know, her estate and Clive Davis are saying, yeah, you could do this. You kind of go, okay, I think I can.
As you play these characters who are sort of so beloved either in the historical imagination or in pop culture, from one to the next, do you feel a little bit less, not, obviously the responsibility is still there, but nervousness about delivering a version that people will
Do I feel less nervous?
more confident?
I say more sure.
Sure.
More and more I learn my craft and I learn what I have and what I lack, and so I know what I need to learn to play these roles. Nervousness never really goes away because I care too much about everything, so I want to make sure that it's right, but a little nervousness is never bad. I use it like adrenaline, so it means that if I think if the nervousness went away, I would probably stop doing it, because I think that's my indication. The butterflies and the, is this how, I wonder how this is going to be. I think that's an indication that I love it. But I think there is like a sureness that comes in bit by bit as I play these characters. It's sort of like, okay, if they trust me to do this, then maybe I can do this, you know. And if I do the work, then I'll be all right. If I do the research, then I'll be okay. It's learning bit by bit that I have the capacity to tell the stories fully. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see you tell many more. Thank you so much for joining us, Cynthia.
Thank you very much.
This has been Entertainment Weekly's The Awardist.